Okay, so today we're going to be going over what you should do when you need to inspect your brakes. And the first thing you're going to do is inside the vehicle you want to mash down on your brake with the car turned off so that you can feel that you want to make sure your brake pedal feels nice and firm. If it doesn't, and if it feels squishy, then there's a good chance that you may have air in one of your lines, which if so, then that requires a little bit more work. But after you do that, you want to make sure that you check your brake fluid level, make sure it's close to the line or right at the line. You want to make sure it's nice and full so that you don't have any problems, because that could be a safety issue. And then the next thing you want to do is, once you take the wheel off so that you can get better access to the brake caliper and the rotors and the pads, you want to go ahead and check. First thing you do is check for any obvious damage. As you can see here, we have a lot of rust, and this is a thin edge, so it's probably going to need to be measured. And you want to check your lines and make sure there's no cracks or rubber didn't dry rot anywhere. And you want to look at the calipers and make sure there's no sort of obvious damage to the caliper itself. Okay, so the next step is to go ahead and begin removing the caliper. When you do this, there are 4 bolts that you have to take off. There are 2 on the back of the rotor, which you can see there's one here, and then there's a lower bolt down here at the bottom. And then you also have to remove the caliper side bolts, and there's one at the top, and there's another one over here at the bottom. Okay, now that we have taken the 4 bolts out, the 2 from the back of the rotor and the 2 from the caliper side bolts, when you take the caliper off, you want to go ahead and take it off, and be careful because this will fall out. So you want to go ahead and take that out. But when you take the caliper, you want to use some sort of, on here we have a hook, but not all of them will have a hook. So you want to take something and find a way to secure it so that it's not pulling on the brake line, so that you don't risk any damage to the brake line. Okay, so when you took the caliper off, the caliper bracket came out because it was no longer connected. Once you take the caliper bracket out, you want to make sure that there's no damage on it. You want to inspect it, and then you want to remove both of the pads and look at them, and the next thing will be to measure them. So we'll take both the pads out and make sure that the caliper bracket looks okay, which it looks good, so we'll move on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over the pads and measure them and make sure that they are inside the spec using the pad measurement tool. When you do this, the specifications for these particular pads are 1.6, and when we measure these, you will find that this one as well is inside the spec, and this one as well was inside the spec. So these both these pads are okay. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to measure the thickness of the brake rotor, and when you do this, you want to take a couple measurements and find the lowest spot and use that to go off of as your thickness to tell you if it needs to be replaced or not. Here we can see we have a measurement of 18.59, so let's move it a little bit and take another measurement. Here we can see it's 18.91, and here it is 21.5. So this tells us that this rotor needs to be replaced. Okay, so as we can see here, we have the front disc, the front rotor specs for the car that we pulled the rotors off of and measured. These are the 2 most common type of rotors used, and you can see both of them are between 22 and 27 millimeters, and the maximum refinishing limit was 26, and the other one's 21, and when we measured ours yesterday, they were at 20, almost 19 in a couple places, so they need to be replaced. Using Protoman, we can see that the standard for the front brake pad is between 10.5 and 10.8 millimeters, and that the limit is 1.6. And that means that when we measured our pads, they were within these standards, so they are okay.